Welcome back to the Shuffle. We had such a fun time last night playing with some math together and engaging in this task. And we're going to go ahead and share some of the strategies that we saw last night and that we've talked about this morning as we've been debriefing it. But if you haven't played with the task yet, press pause now. Go explore the task because there will be spoilers during this debrief. So we're excited to do this, and we're going to let Mike kick it off with how he and Stephanie were thinking about the task last night.
Yeah, we actually thought about it differently. Like Stephanie was doing this whole crazy table thing with kind of similar to this with like letters, and I just at some point I just realized I need to get cubes. So I started with cubes, and part of it was I wanted to see action. Like, so she had these things happening in the table, but for me it's helpful to kind of see the action. And I love, Zach, now that we've got the actual paintings instead of, because the hard part with these is I had to have a key of like, okay, so this is giraffe and like different things help me remember what is what, and I was starting to lose it. But here can help me. So the way I kind of looked at it is we set giraffe on the end here, and then we had the lollipops and coaster had to go together, right? Yep. So these clips, we can kind of do this. And then the first time we did it, I was kind of matching what Stephanie had. And so she had giraffe, bunny, the coaster pops, and then whatever, I can't remember what else. And so she was kind of going down her table, adjusting some things. And I then started to basically do the action. So basically she would have like the bunny was basically hopping to the end and everything shuffled down. So that's our second arrangement. Then we could jump the two of these over, and then that's another arrangement. And we would just keep repeating this until we got back to our beginning and we found out that we had basically like 6 of these iterations. And we realized that you could also flip these around and then do the exact same thing again. So we ended up with 8, I think, altogether because we had some repeats as we did that. And then we basically followed that for a while. But it was hard to keep track of things because we just had 2 very different systems of organizing it.
Yeah.
And Sarah, do you want to tell them what you came up with?
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking about how it felt like there was going to be a lot of combinations, and I knew that I needed to have an organized way to keep track so that I would know when I was done and had found them all. And it felt like a lot of information for me to hold on to the names of the paintings. Yeah. And so I just decided that the paintings that felt more set were going to be letters, and the ones that had more flexibility and where they moved would be numbers because it was easier for me to think about that. And so I said A was the giraffe, and then I just knew that would always be there, and I kind of could put it out of my mind. I didn't have to worry about the giraffe painting. And the other 2 that went together I named BC, and then the remaining 3 I just labeled 1, 2, 3. And so then I just thought about, well, BC can go in this next spot, and then I'm just thinking about the different combinations of 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And each of those, because B and C can also be reversed, each of those has one more that looks just like that, but just with B and C reversed. And there were 6 combinations with BC right there, and then I could slide it over, and I was still working with combinations of 1, 2, and 3 in 3 spots. They were just different spots. And so then there was another group of 6, and another group of 6, and another group of 6. As I slid those 2 paintings over, and then again taking into account, it's really 12 because you have this like flip happening too.
Yeah, I love that you use the same language as Mike, the slide.
The slide.
Like Mike's sliding the painting over,
Action,
but Sarah, you're sliding letters over
Yes.
to represent that. I love that we can see that there.
Yeah.
The number thing, Sarah, is so clear to me. I think the labels, I would lose things, and I love the fact that you just have to arrange numbers. It's so much easier to. I really love this. It connects with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's look at one more representation that we saw in a number of groups last night that I wanted to highlight. So you ended up with this table where, same thing we saw, Mike, move the giraffe to the left, it stays put. Sarah said, I put an A over here for the giraffe. I don't even worry about that anymore. So the G just kind of stays the same here. They did the same thing where they took the roller coaster and the lollipops piece were kind of locked together. And then they had the other 3, Florida Man, Winking Bunny, and Untitled. And they put them there, and they actually went to a formula at this point. And I know we sort of challenged you all to not jump to formulas, and that's okay. But what they said is with any 3 pieces, I know that there's going to be 6 different arrangements of those pieces, right? Mm-hmm. So I can take 6 things and arrange them in 6 different ways. It's sort of the factorial thing, right? So 3 factorial equals 6, right? So they knew that there were 6 combinations there. So they had this laid out, and they knew that there were 6 ways that could happen, and they took it and said, all right, we have to multiply that by 2, just like Sarah said with her representation, roller coaster and lollipop can switch. Then they did it again, with just shifting roller coaster and lollipop over and moving untitled to the sort of beginning space after the giraffe, right? Same thing, there are 6 combinations of those, 6 combinations of those, but you got to double each of them there, ending up with a total of 48 different representations, 48 different valid arrangements for this, which is kind of mind-blowing, right? It's 6 pieces of art with constraints, and there's 48 different stories we can tell just from the ways that we can arrange these things.
Yeah.
But let's look at some connections between these 3 representations. Mike, can you take us back to your piece for a second there?
Yeah.
And then maybe let's talk about where do we see that sort of switching in Sarah's representation?
Yeah. So I think, so for Sarah's, right, we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, so your A's your giraffe, right?
Yeah.
The BC's are the combo. Sorry if I'm scratching off your...
That's
right?
okay.
And then the 1, 2, 3 is almost arbitrary, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily matter, but like if we're going to have a referent to it, I guess 1's now going to be Winky Bunny, Florida Man, and then Untitled for like 1, 2, 3. So then so here's the first iteration. So then the next thing she does, she just flips these 2, right?
Beautiful, yeah.
And then the next one here, so then it's Florida Man now comes into the first position, and that slides over, right? And then so that's here, right? So then we have, and it looks like this is the hard part of remembering like what
Which
each
is
thing
which.
stands
Which is
for.
which,
So
yeah.
2 is
Yeah.
Florida Man, 3. I already lost it.
Yeah, that's right. But then this would keep
Untitled,
moving
I think.
in,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's sort of like
Yeah.
a jumping, yeah.
Yep. So you're seeing that iteration happen here.
Yeah.
And Sarah, do you want to talk about where might we see your work in this representation here?
Yeah, it was,
Can I make one comment?
sure.
I'm just this is like a in the moment realization.
Yeah.
I'm always a huge proponent of the context. Like it's
Yeah.
always helpful to match the context.
Yeah.
But in this circumstance here, it feels like the context is getting in the way. Like,
Interesting.
every time
Yeah.
I try to like really match the context and not like get into that more abstract way, I'd lose track. It was like,
interesting.
so it's just like, I'm just had that realization right
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
not to discount context, but it's like here it just feels problematic.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's so,
Yeah.
this is so clear to me, but then even trying to match mine to yours is like, ooh, God, I'm losing it.
Wow,
Yeah.
really cool, Mike. Thanks for
Anyway.
sharing that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, Sarah, do you want to jump in and,
Well,
and
it was interesting for me to see this chart because it immediately made sense to me because I could see my work condensed into that chart. But if I hadn't done all of this, like even it took me a while to catch on to the patterns that were
Sure.
going on. And I always, when I'm in this kind of work where I'm like listing a lot of things, I'm always looking for shortcuts, like looking for structure so that I don't have to keep listing things over and over, hence why I didn't do this. But it still took me a while of like needing to sort of trust what was happening.
yeah.
But it's interesting, like if you look at this first row, I can see like that this is staying the same. I can see this combo here that they've sort of left. Also, it feels like stuck there. And then these 6 combinations are here.
Yeah.
And then that times 2 is accounting for that, like 2 groups of that.
Right. I love that so much. I can kind of see like this part right here, this first section, is condensed into this row right here. This part is condensed into this row right here, right? And as lovely as this is, I do think it's a really lovely and articulate way to do this. It does hide some of this math, right? It hides some of these things that you're seeing here in where those combinations come from, right? But I think that's the sort of level of abstraction that certain people were ready for, and we loved seeing that show up so much last night. Any other last-minute thoughts about this problem?
I'm just still thinking about what Mike just said because I also recognize like, oh, this context, I can't think about this context. I have to like take it out of context. But then if you look at this with no context, like what does that mean, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's so important to be able to like put it back into context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And or it's like in this way it's like an augmented context, right? So this is still the context of arranging paintings and things. I think getting to the granular of like the roller coaster versus Winking Bunny, it's like you get those details get lost a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So you guys don't like my child's artwork? Is that what
We
No,
love
big
it.
shout out to her for giving us these great pieces of art to play with. And always come back to the context at the end because again, this was about creativity. We were talking earlier today about how this would be a cool partner with an ELA classroom or an art classroom where you could look at 6 pieces of art from one artist and learn how to tell a story through that, sort of like the work that curators of museums do, a really good cross-cultural context that is about story and about meaning, but also about some really fun math. So we hope you enjoyed this as much as we did, and we hope to see you at our next Playdate.